Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the internet, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and a privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining me here today. Guys, I might be a little bit tired today. I had a late night. Ann and I went to go see Happy Time Murders last night. Now, Happy Time Murders is under review embargo until tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon is when the review embargo lifts, so I can't say anything about the movie right now. I mean, I just can't mention my reaction to it at all at this point. But so Ann and I went to go see that movie yesterday. I'll give my review tomorrow. But then we were at the theater, right? And we're having dinner. There's a restaurant in the theater. It's the ArcLight Hollywood, and so and they have a restaurant in the theater. So we're sitting down eating before the movie starts. And if you guys watch the show, you guys know Ann and I have been trying to figure out a night that we can finally get out and see BlakKklansmen. We've been dying to see it, and we're like, well, you know, it's playing here, and there's like a 9:45 show of it, and we're like, oh, we're going to get home really late, but okay, whatever. So we did a double feature last night of Happy Time Murders and BlakKklansmen. Just going to tell you quick. Believe the hype on BlakKklansmen. Believe the hype on BlakKklansmen. It's awesome. I think it may replace Do the Right Thing as my favorite Spike Lee film. And I gotta admit, I'm not the world's biggest Spike Lee fan. Quite frankly, sometimes I think he's a little overrated. He's got a couple of films I really love, but overall, there have been times that I've thought Spike Lee's a little bit overrated. But I give credit where it's due. This movie crushed it. Crushed it. Absolutely loved this film. And we're going to talk a little bit about it because we got a story today about somebody who didn't love the film, was the director of that piece of shit movie, Sorry to Bother You. Boots Riley is now coming out and bashing BlakKklansmen, even suggesting that Spike Lee took payoffs from the police to make the police look good in his movie. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. We got a whole bunch of topics to talk about here today. But first, before we do anything, let's get a little bit of house cleaning done here and talk about the results of yesterday's question of the day. Now, of course, yesterday's question of the day was talking about the upcoming Marvel film, Captain Marvel. And the question was, you know, we're getting close to March, and the movie comes out. Still no trailer. So the question I posed to you guys was, when do you think we're going to get that first trailer for Captain Marvel? Will it be before the beginning of October, so between now and the end of September, or will it be after the beginning of October? And here's what you guys said. You guys actually said by a little bit, just a little bit of a margin, agreed with me that it's going to be before the beginning of October. 54.14% of you said, yes, we will get the first Captain Marvel trailer before the beginning of October. So sometime between now and the beginning of and the end of September. And then a whole ton of you still, 45.86% of you believe that we're not going to get the first Captain Marvel trailer at least until after October 1st. So it was close. Who's actually right? Well, who knows? We're going to find out pretty soon. But once again, the majority of you guys said, yes, we're going to get that first Captain Marvel trailer before the beginning of October. We got a new question of the day today, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. And hey, we got a couple things off the top here. This morning, brand new trailer for the new A24 slasher film, Slice, dropped. Now, I've heard about this film, and I thought, yeah, okay, this could be just a fun little slasher. Honestly, doesn't look like anything to keep our eyes on. But the trailer dropped this morning, and I gotta tell you, I liked it way more than I thought I would. This new Slice trailer looks hilarious. First of all, the premise sounds so 80s delicious. No pun intended with the pizza reference here, but so 80s delicious. The trailer starts off with like, there's a werewolf, something, and this is the story about a werewolf, a something else, and a shitty pizza parlor. And so there's this slasher killer going around, and then you find out that the victims are all like delivery people from this pizza shack, and then Paul Scheer is in the trailer. I love Paul Scheer. And they go, and of course, they reveal in the trailer that the pizza shack is sitting on a gateway to hell. Of course it is. I mean, what else would you expect? Of course the pizza place is sitting on a gateway to hell. And look, Zazie Beetz is in this thing. She looks great. I just can't get enough of Zazie Beetz these days. And I'm really, really hoping they finalize that deal to have her in the new Joker movie, because I just think that sounds absolutely incredible too. Also, from Stranger Things, I like this kid, Joe Keery. You remember him from Stranger Things, season 1 and 2. He's going to be in season 3, I'm sure. He's got a spot in. I really like him. Chance the Rapper's in there. Hey, look, I had no interest in this film, I got to say, but I watched this trailer, and it's just so, even the music, you know what? You would not be blamed if you watched this trailer and thought it was a Stranger Things spinoff. It has a very Stranger Things kind of feel to it. And it's not just because Joe Keery's in it, but you know, from the music, the way it's shot, the color palette of it, the tone of it, it does have a little bit of a Stranger Things feel to it. But still, I like the trailer a lot. Totally surprised me. This is now on my radar. So once the show's done today, guys, go and check out the trailer for Slice. I think you're going to like it. Now, speaking of Stranger Things, as we move on to a next topic here, as you guys all know, the new Hellboy movie comes out in January. We got to be getting a trailer pretty soon. I mean, we're getting close to January now. We're now, I guess, so September, October, November, December, January. We're 5 months away right now. So we've got to be getting relatively close to when we're going to get that first trailer. The lead guy in the film, the guy playing Hellboy, Stranger Things, David Harbour, was recently interviewed and talked a little bit about Hellboy. And I just thought he said some really interesting things here about the character that I think, and the reason I like this story is because David Harbour touches on the things that I have always personally found fascinating about Hellboy. To me, it's never been his look. It's never been his power. It's never been all that kind of stuff. The thing that's always really appealed to me about Hellboy was the fact that this is a being who was by design meant to be a death machine, but he turns out wanting to be a good guy. Anyway, David Harbour made the following comments about Hellboy and the character in the new reboot, and I really like what he had to say. Let's read this at length. David Harbour said the following. He said, he's, talking about Hellboy, of course, a creature that was meant to bring about the end of the world, and he just sort of wants to be a good guy. He's got that complexity to him. He's also a monster who lives among human beings, so he's in a sense fighting for human beings against his fellow monsters, and yet the humans hate him because they fear him and they think he's weird looking and everything. Then he goes on to say, the filmmakers all watched Stranger Things and saw what I did there, which is similar. He has a heart that's really good with a lot of this crusted over stuff. What I'm dealing with in Hellboy is a lot different, bigger in a certain way. It's very Shakespearean. It's demons and witches and stuff like that, but it has a similar core to a dude who's trapped in horrible circumstances, who's just trying to be a good guy. Look, what I really love about David Harbour's comments here is not just the fact that he's highlighting those characteristics of Hellboy that I've always been fascinated and drawn to. The fact that he was by design, he was created to be this apocalyptic, engine. And yet he wants to be a good guy. But even more beyond that, what I truly love about Harbour's comments here is that it seems like he and the filmmakers are approaching this from a position of wanting to focus on the character. And I find no matter what the type of movie is, whether it's comedy, whether it's a comic book movie, whether it's horror, whether it's thriller, whether it's drama, whether it's period piece, whatever it is, I generally find that when the filmmakers choose to focus on character, good things usually happen. I'm not saying the movies always end up being good, but they usually end up being better than they would have otherwise. Good things usually happen. I want to take a look one more time at the second part of David Harbour's statement here again. Look, they all watched Stranger Things. They saw what I did with my character in Stranger Things. He has a heart that's really good with a lot of this crusted over stuff. What I'm dealing with in Hellboy is a lot different, bigger in a certain way. It's very Shakespearean. It's demons and witches and stuff like that, but it has a similar core to a dude who's trapped in horrible circumstances, who's just trying to be a good guy. And therein lies a hook, a dramatic hook, that I think works really well, that I don't think enough movies try to take advantage of, that I don't think enough movies try to do. Focus on the hero. And if you really boil down a lot of great movies, it's a good person in a horrible circumstance. what do they do? And a lot of movies, you can kind of boil down to that thing. And when you focus in on that and you focus in on the character, I usually find good things happen. Now, again, it's far too early to make any sort of judgments about whether this new Hellboy movie is going to be good or not. I mean, there's some really good people attached behind the camera, in front of the camera, all that kind of stuff, sure. But we still haven't even had a first trailer. But I will say that up till this point, including the people behind and in front of the camera, and now these words from David Harbour, I'm getting more excited about it. I'm getting more also anxious about it because I'm like, where's this trailer? Give us this trailer, but it should be out pretty soon. So that's just my thoughts. What are you guys thinking about this new Hellboy movie coming out? Where are your thoughts? Are you excited about it? Are you still pessimistic? Are you kind of taking a, I'll wait and see the trailer kind of attitude? Jump into the comment section below and let me know what you guys think about that. Okay, with that stuff out of the way, let's now get to our main topics of the day. And how do we pick out our main topics? It's simple. You guys pick out our main topics. How do you do that? It's easy. You just send me a question or a topic by emailing me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less, or else I won't even be able to fit it on the screen. All right, with that out of the way, let's get into the first official topic today. And the first official topic today comes to us from Drew Larson, who writes, "Hey, John. A big fan of your show. Thank you so much. Mile 22 was supposed to be a franchise starter with the studio STX already announcing a sequel back in June. With the atrocious reviews and underperformance of the box office, will the studio now succumb to those results and cancel the sequel?" Yes, so what Drew's talking about here is very quietly, again, back in June, it might have even been a little bit before that, they announced that they had brought on a screenwriter to start to developing the screenplay for Mile 22 Part 2. So maybe it would be Mile 222. Now there's something I go 222 miles. Anyway, so they were starting to develop the sequel. However, the movie sucks. Mile 22 sucks. All films subjective. Maybe you liked it, and that's great if you did. But from my point of view, and from the point of view of a bunch of other people, the movie was terrible. On top of that, it did not blow the doors off the bank. It made $13 million on its opening weekend on a budget of $50. You'd like to, at the very minimum, make half of your budget on your opening weekend. Because, you know, your opening weekend's your biggest weekend. It all goes downhill from there. Made $13 million, completely horribly received by audiences and critics. What does that do to this supposed sequel? Oh, it's dead. I have no doubt it's dead. Now, here's the thing. You can flop at the box office. Let's say Mile 22 made $13 million at the box office like it did. But let's say the audiences loved it and the critics loved it too. You could then, if you're one of the executives at STX, you could go to your bosses and make an argument that, hey, if we make another one, it'll make more money because the audiences love it, the critics love it. We have a good chance to make more money a second time around if we make another one. And hey, maybe we should because we need to make up for the losses on the first one. You could make an argument there. If the situation was reversed and everybody hated the movie, which they do, but the movie made big money, you can again make an argument. Hey, yeah, we got bad critic reviews and people didn't like it, but we made a lot of money and we'll do a better job making it the second time around, so we should make a sequel. If either one of those circumstances are there, you could justifiably make a case for making a sequel to Mile 22. But the reality is neither of those circumstances are our reality right here, right? The audiences hate it, the critics hated it, and it flopped at the box office. There's just simply no justification for taking another swing at it. There's just no justification for it. You just can't justify it. Now, this goes to prove a theory that I've always had. A lot of times I think when studios announce these sequels that we're working on a sequel already, I think sometimes in the case of Mile 22 especially, that's just a PR move on behalf of the studio to say, hey, look, audience, we love this movie and we know you're going to love it, so we're already moving forward with a sequel. It's really a PR move. I think they full well knew that I think they knew they had a movie that wasn't very good on their hands. And they were just kind of hoping they could make a big pop at the box office. But they knew it wasn't that great, so they started announcing, oh, guys, we're already making a sequel. Wow, this movie must be really good if they're already making a sequel, because they're showing confidence in it, right? I mean, that's reasonable to assume. But yeah, I got a feeling the execs at STX knew this movie sucked. I mean, they had to know. So I guess there was never much credence to that. But yes, I would say, and again, I have no insider information. I'm just speculating here, but I would say that any sequel for Mile 22 is probably gone. That's just my guess. But who knows? Stranger things have happened. All right, let's move on to topic number 2. And topic number 2 today comes to us from Max Dorset, who writes, I'll add my name to the people telling you have to see BlakKklansmen. Saw it last night and it's awesome. Then I see this story about the director of Sorry to Bother You talking all sorts of shit about it. Saying stuff like Spike Lee changed the story and got paid off to make cops look good. Personally, the whole thing made him look like a spoiled child who is just upset another movie is getting more attention than his now. Your thoughts. All right, we kind of alluded to this off the top. And like you, Max, although when you say last night, you probably meant 2 nights ago, and I actually saw BlakKklansmen last night. So let's just get to this out. BlakKklansman's awesome. I mean, maybe you see it and you don't like it, and that's fine. All film's subjective. From my point of view, I was completely blown away by it. Just loved it. And here's one of the brilliant things about BlakKklansmen. Spike Lee, who again, I've never been the biggest Spike Lee fan in the world, but Spike Lee finds a way to take this very heavy subject matter with very serious ramifications, but deliver it in a very palatable way to a movie audience. Because many times in this film feels very light, and you can make an argument this is a comedy. So Spike Lee delivers this film in such a way that he's delivering all the power of it while making it very palatable and not smacking you across the face with the heaviness of it, but rather keeping it light. And then when you get to the end of the movie, I'm not going to give anything away, you realize you did get the full impact of the film. It's just brilliantly done. Brilliantly done. So, this article comes out yesterday. This gentleman here, Boots Riley, he is the director of Sorry to Bother You. A horrible, terrible mess of a film that it's just beyond me. You know, I often say this, and it's true here. There are movies that I love that I go, yeah, I get why other people don't like it. Sure, yeah, I understand that. And there are movies that I hate where I go, yeah, I get why people like it. Sure, I mean, it wasn't for me. I thought it was terrible, but I could see why some people would like it. I came out of Sorry to Bother You absolutely certain I would open up Rotten Tomatoes and see a 0 on it. Like completely 100% certain I would see a 0 on it. And I was floored. I don't know where it's at right now, but it was at over 90% on Rotten Tomatoes when I saw it. And I'm like, I cannot for the life of me imagine why anybody saw any artistic merit in this film. It's garbage. It's absolute garbage. You know what it is? Here's what I like. And if you guys remember, I was so excited for this movie. I was so stoked for BlakKklansmen, for Sorry to Bother You. I was so excited about it. I was like running on about how I can't wait to see this thing as it was coming out. To me, this is what Sorry to Bother You is. It's a 12-year-old child who looks in the dictionary one day and learns a new word, allegory. It's like, oh, that sounds cool. And having a 12-year-old mind, what he does is he goes into school, drops his pants, and takes a giant shit on the floor, then picks up his own piece of shit and draws a picture of a snowman with his crap on a piece of paper and say, it's an allegory and it means this, because he just learned what allegory means, right? And then to my shock and surprise, everybody stood around that crappy, made with a piece of crap painting and went, oh, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that great? I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? It's an ugly snowman made with a piece of shit. No, it's awesome. It's allegory. Guess what? It's not allegory. When you explain the allegories in your own movie and you hit the audience over the head with it, it's not an allegory anymore. Now it's just really bad storytelling. Anyway, I've been penting that up. Honestly, I think Sorry to Bother You is the worst film of the year. I think it is the worst film of the year. And don't pull that BS on me of, oh, you just didn't get it. No, I understood. You'd have to be an idiot not to understand it, because everything is so over-explained with these ridiculous, motifs that just made no sense and just made a jarbled mess of a film that other people sit around and go, oh, isn't that wonderful? It's terrible. But anyway, All film is subjective. If you liked it, that's great. I'm just expressing my own point of view on it. That's all. My point of view is no more, no less valid than yours. And if you liked it, that's great. However, Boots decides, first of all, I think that's actually a pretty cool name. I like the dude's name. It's pretty cool. Anyway, he decides to write this piece, and it's basically a hit piece on BlakKklansmen. Oh, look, a new movie coming out that the critics like more than yours and is getting more attention than yours. So he comes out and writes this piece. And remember, I'm reading this before seeing BlakKklansmen. So I read this article that he wrote yesterday during the day. I went to go see BlakKklansmen last night. So I read the article having not seen the film. But he's going on to say, there are things in this movie that are fabricated. I'm like, well, yeah. All movies, even movies based on true stories, have pieces that are fabricated for the movie. We're talking about the movie. Is the movie good? That's all I care about. You guys have heard me talk about that many, 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 many times. So yeah, okay, I assume there's going to be parts of the thing that are fabricated for the movie. All I care about is the movie. That's all I care about. Anyway, then he goes on to talk about that, how basically Spike Lee, all he did in this movie was it was a big propaganda piece to try to make cops look good and try to make cops look like the hero. And then he even drops the suggestion that Spike Lee got paid off by police to make this movie. To make a movie where cops are the heroes. I swear to God, he flat out suggests this in this article. And I'm like, whoa. So now I'm going in to BlakKklansmen expecting to see, every police officer in the country is this shining knight, always just upright and good and standing up for the right. And I'm watching this movie and it's like, wow, almost all the cops in this movie are total assholes. Like, the cops in this movie are jerks. And the story focuses on this small group of cops who are some of the good ones. But make no mistake about it, they show like racism and corruption and vileness within the police department as well. They completely show that stuff. Our lead character is a black cop, and there's even the scene in the movie, I'm not going to give away the context or anything, but there's a scene in the movie where a black cop is getting beat up by other cops just because he's black. This movie, after reading Boots' article, I went in expecting to see all police shining. It's like, no. This movie does not portray all police as big, heroic. No, they show that at the time, there was a real rotten segment within the police departments. Fine. But it also showed that, hey, at the same time, there were some good ones that were trying to do good things. So I didn't see, and here's where it really comes down to for me. And I've said this before. It's been a few years since we've had a situation like this. But what Boots Riley has now painted himself. He's painted himself as a jealous, petulant child who's just mad that somebody else's movie is getting better reviews than his and is getting more attention than his. I have always said this. I will continue to say this. It is completely inappropriate, I believe, for a director to come out and crap talk other directors' movies while their movies are out in theater. I think it's completely inappropriate. Like, you can have your own opinions about it, and maybe you can even talk about them a few years down the road. But I really believe if you are a director in the Hollywood studio system and you're putting out wide release films and all this kind of stuff, you can have your own opinion, and you don't have to lie and say you like another director's stuff. But you don't come out and attack other directors' stuff if you yourself are a director with a movie in theaters right now. It's just bad form. And I'm using a polite term there. It's just bad form. Because when you do otherwise, you make yourself look like a jealous, whiny little baby. And that's what he's done here. He's made himself look like a jealous, petulant, whiny, crying baby because somebody else brought a fancier looking toy car to the play date than he did. And it's embarrassing. Now, granted, I'm a little bit more fueled up about it because on top of all that, I thought this guy's movie sucked. I thought it was terrible. But take that out of it for a second. Even if I thought, like a lot of other critics, and don't lose sight of that, a lot of other people like this movie. Sorry to bother you. A lot of people like it. So even if I was one of those other people, that's still not cool. For you to sit here and trash on another, especially saying the things, and to even come out and flat out insinuate that the other filmmaker is taking bribes from police just to make police look good. It's like, what are you talking about? Anyway, look, I've never liked Sorry to Bother You, the movie, but I've always respected the attempt, right? I've always respected the attempt. I gotta tell you, and not that anybody would care, but any respect I had for this guy is kind of doing this. Attacking another filmmaker whose movie's getting better reviews than you, even saying they're taking money and they're taking bribes and they're this and they're that and they had an agenda and blah. It's like, why are you talking right now? Just shush. Stop speaking. Shh. Just sit back. A lot of people like your movie. Let people like your movie. And let people like the other guy's movie. No, I don't want people to like the other guy's movies. I'm going to talk crap about... I don't get it. To summarize. Sorry to Bother You, horrible movie. BlakKklansmen, awesome movie. I mean, that's just the way I see it. But again, all film is subjective. You may see... Maybe you hated BlakKklansmen and you love Sorry to Bother You. That's cool too. As long as you get enjoyment out of movies, that's all I care about. But that's simply the way I saw it. Anyway... Let's move on to question number 3. And question number 3 comes to us from Sherry K, who writes, I honestly don't know why it's taken so long for them to get another Sherlock Holmes movies made, but I'm really glad it's coming. Robert Downey Jr. put up a tweet saying he's practicing my Sherlock face. I know they already announced a release date, but you never know if it's real or not. With this social media post, do you think it's now safe to assume that this movie is really happening? All right, thanks a lot for the question, Sherry. And you're absolutely 100% correct. Just because studios announce movies, it's becoming more and more frequent that movies that get announced then never happen, right? So they announced years and years and years and years and years. It's been forever since, Sherlock Holmes Game of Shadows, I think it was called. The second Sherlock Holmes movie, which was pretty good. Not as good as the first Sherlock Holmes film, but still pretty good. And now they're saying they're finally doing it. Okay, so Robert Downey Jr.'s back. Jude Law's back. The one interesting thing is they have still not announced who's going to direct it and whether or not Guy Ritchie will be back to direct it. Now, Guy Ritchie is currently a little busy making his Aladdin film, but he should be wrapped on that in time to do a Sherlock Holmes 3 for its targeted release date. The timing should work out, but again, they haven't made any announcement that they're bringing the director back. Personally, I hope they do. I really like Guy Ritchie. I love his style. I thought what he brought to Sherlock Holmes was really great and all that kind of stuff. But getting back to the main question about, does Robert Downey Jr. now tweeting out about Sherlock Holmes 3, can that make fans like you and I feel safe in getting excited for it because now it looks like it's really happening? I'll say yes. Look, Robert Downey Jr. is not Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He does not put out 50 tweets a day. He's very selective and a little bit sparse on his social media. So when he puts out something on social media, it means a lot, enough to him to actually post about it, because he doesn't post about a lot. I would agree with you that him putting out this post, yes, I think it's a done deal. I think, yes, it was announced. That's great. But now that we actually got the talent saying, I'm now prepping for it, in kind of a pseudo way. He says, I'm actually prepping for it. I think that goes a long way to put any concerns you have, any concerns I have about whether this film is actually happening or not to rest. Again, to me, the big question is still about whether Guy Ritchie is going to come back. I really hope they do. If they don't, I just hope they get a really good director to replace him, but I'm still going to keep my fingers crossed for Guy Ritchie. All right, let's move on to topic number 4. And topic number 4 comes to us today from Edward Tucker, who writes, I know they're not everyone's favorite MCU movies, but I really like all the Thor movies so far, including Thor: The Dark World. There was an interview with Chris Hemsworth today where he said he thought the movie was meh. Should he be saying things like that? And do you agree with him? All right, thanks a lot for the question, Edward. And I am like you. I like all the Thor movies. including Thor the Dark World, but I have always said Thor the Dark World was a big step down from the first Thor. I thought the first Thor was a much, much better film. I think Thor Ragnarok is a much better film. I still think there's enough merit in Thor the Dark World to enjoy, but even I will say was a big step down. Number one, should Chris Hemsworth be saying that one of his own films was meh? I feel okay with it. What I don't want, because what is not professional, is for an actor who got paid to be in and promote a movie to talk crap about a movie he has coming out now. That's not professional. But Thor the Dark World is now years ago. Another Thor movie has come out since then. I think it's perfectly acceptable and okay for a George Clooney to say, yeah, my Batman movie sucked. I think it's perfectly acceptable and fine at this point in time for Chris Hemsworth to go, yeah, Thor to the Dark World was meh. I mean, I think that's perfectly fine. I think that was a tempered, measured response to a question, and I don't think there's anything to read into. He said, yeah, the second one was meh. I have no problem with that whatsoever. What is interesting, though, is there's a whole bunch of movie sites I like to read and enjoy. There's a lot of really great movie sites out there. And one of the sites that I like to read is a website called Cinema Blend. And I actually know a bunch of the people over there. So anyway, in the whole thing of this, Chris Hemsworth saying the second one was meh, Cinema Blend, I can't remember which author wrote this over there, but Cinema Blend wrote this article where they very interestingly pointed out that while Thor the Dark World may not be the best Thor movie, they made a really good argument for the importance of Thor the Dark World. Let me quote Cinema Blend here. Let me pull up this quote that they wrote, because I actually thought it was quite interesting what they said. They wrote this: Thor Ragnarok, actually what they meant to say is Thor the Dark World. I think that was a typo they put in there. But anyway, Thor the Dark World remains an essential film in the greater MCU canon, even if it's not the most beloved entry in said canon. The movie features the debut of the Reality Stone, making it a pivotal entry on the road to Avengers Infinity War. And, maybe more importantly, Loki's arc in this film is fundamental to the character that he becomes during later films. Let me read that again, because I think that's really important. Loki's arc in the film is fundamental to the character that he becomes during the later films in the overarching Marvel franchise. Thor the Dark World may not be the best film that Marvel Studios has ever given audiences, but to me, it still stands out as a fundamental stepping stone for those who want to understand the complete continuity of this superhero landscape and what it all means in the grand scheme of things. Once again, that comes from the website Cinema Blend. And I gotta tell you, I thought that was a really good thought. I thought that was a really interesting thought, because even I, who am a big Thor fan, I often think of Thor the Dark World and then just kind of brush it away. I don't really give the film that much consideration. It's a throwaway film to me. I got enough enjoyment out of it, but it's kind of a throwaway thing. And I really think that article brings up a couple of very, very good points. Number one, its place in the footsteps leading up to Avengers Infinity War. If there is no Thor the Dark World, there is no Infinity War, because it's what introduced us to the Reality Stone. But I really like what they point out is that Thor the Dark World really was the turning point for Loki. You know, up until that point, Loki was a multi-dimensional character, but more the bad guy, you know? It's in Thor the Dark World that they do an awful lot of character work on him. Like, I still remember one of my favorite scenes in Thor the Dark World, and actually probably one of my favorite scenes in the MCU. One of my favorite scenes in all the MCU. Loki, who despite all of his charm and charisma, is not somebody you want to F with. You don't want to screw with Loki, right? There's a reason that everybody considers him a global threat. Anyway, there's this great scene that I loved in Thor the Dark World, and there's not many that I loved in that movie, but this one I did. Loki is in his cell on Asgard, and he gets word that they killed his mother. His adopted mother, but his mother nonetheless. Tom Hiddleston's performance in that one scene said more about the multi-layered nature of the Loki character than anything else in the MCU. Because at his heart, despite his anger and rage, he loved his mother. And he, as we saw in the first Thor, he actually loved his father. Adopted father, but father nonetheless. In the Allfather, right? So, and the rage. And I just remember thinking, watching the movie, going, oh my God, I would not want to be the one who killed Loki's mother. Because that rage, to me, it was the best scene of Thor: The Dark World. Not a lot of other big highlights, but it was the best scene. And in reading this article, it just reminded me of that big thing, that movie, probably the biggest contribution that movie made to the overall MCU. It was an important one. Yes, the introduction of the Reality Stone, but it was the turning point for our understanding of the Loki character. And I think they're absolutely right for that. That is a big contribution this film made, and we shouldn't forget it. All right, let's move on to the final email topic of the day. And the final emailed in topic today comes to us from Jack Wickham, who writes, how the heck are they going to market Avengers 4? Do they show the dead characters in the marketing and build up a mystery regarding how they come back? Or do they not feature them at all? Do the actors do press tours and interviews? It's going to be very interesting to see how they tackle it. What approach do you think they should take? All right, that is the $1 million question. Now, we've been getting a number of questions similar to that, but usually revolving around Spider-Man, right? A lot of people have been asking, how the hell are they going to market Spider-Man Far From Home? Because, spoiler alert for Avengers Infinity War, but the movie's now out on home video. If you haven't seen Avengers Infinity War by now, then you don't have any interest in seeing it. Spider-Man dies at the end of Avengers Infinity War. And yet, they're shooting Spider-Man Far From Home right now. How the hell do you market it? Right? But now let's get more specific to a movie that comes out before Spider-Man Far From Home does. Avengers Infinity War, or Avengers 4. How do they market this thing? First of all, let's understand there's something we don't know. And that is, when do the characters come back, right? We know they're coming back because they're making another Guardians of the Galaxy movie. We know they're making another Black Panther movie. We know they're making another Spider-Man movie. All characters who died, and yet they all have new movies coming. So we know they're coming back. Everybody knows they're coming back. Anyway. So, but what we do not know is, when do they come back in this movie? Do they come back in the first act? Do they come back halfway through the movie? Or does Avengers 4 play out that the whole point of that movie is them undoing what Thanos did and getting all the dead characters back, and that's the triumphant ending of the film, and everybody just reappears at the end of that movie or in the last 5 or 10 minutes of that movie? Because if all these characters reappear at the end of the film, then there's no problem. Then there's no problem here with how you market the movie. You market the movie with the first 90% of the film. You market that this is a movie about trying to undo, about trying to track down Thanos, about trying to get these stones, maybe using the quantum realm, about the characters planning and scheming about how do we get everybody back, and they're then embarking on their quest to try to get it back. And then, look, we all know the ending. We all know the characters are coming back, but you don't include the last 5 minutes of the movie in your marketing. So if, under that circumstance, if they're not bringing the characters back to like the last part of the last act, then there's no problem. Then there's no question about how do we market this film. It's not an issue. However, what if they don't bring them back at the end, but instead bring them back halfway through the film? Or bring them back in the first act, and then it takes them all again to go on the next part of the quest of trying to get back, trying to find Thanos, track him down, figure out a way to undo, whatever the case is. What if instead of bringing these characters back at the end, they bring them back in Act 1 or 2? Then what do you do? I would suggest this. Just show it. Just look, if Spider-Man and, I don't know, and Black Panther and Doctor Strange and whatever, if these guys all pop back up before that midway part of the movie, just put them in the trailers. It doesn't matter. Look, you can make an argument of, You can't give away the surprise of them coming back. Who's going to be surprised? Nobody's going to be surprised. Everybody knows these characters are all coming back. And if they don't know right now, they're going to know in a couple of months. Everybody knows these characters are coming back. Like in the trailers for Titanic, they showed in the trailer the Titanic sinking. Because everybody knows the Titanic sinks. So you can show it in your trailer. You can show it. We're not going to be surprising anybody. Again, if though the characters don't come back till the end of the film, then don't show that because that's giving away the ending of the film. But if the ending of the film isn't the characters coming back and it's just part of the ongoing story in the movie and they come back in Act 1 or Act 2, just show them. Just show them. Because then clearly getting those characters back isn't what the movie's about. If you bring back those characters in Act 1, then this movie is not about getting the characters back. It's about something else. Right? And at that point, just show that in the marketing. It's the same way I feel about Spider-Man Far From Home. You're going to have to start putting out your trailers before Avengers 4 comes out, right? Because Spider-Man Far From Home only comes out 2 months after Avengers 4. So there's already going to be trailers for Spider-Man Far From Home with Spider-Man in it. So they're already going to be revealing that Spider-Man's back, so it stands to reason the other characters are coming back. I honestly, again, barring the circumstance that all the characters get brought back at the very end of the movie, because if that's the case, then you don't show anything. But barring that, if they come back in Acts 1 or Acts 2, just show them in the trailers. Because everybody knows they're coming back. Everybody will have already seen, before seeing Avengers 4, that Spider-Man's back, and we're going to see him in Spider-Man Far From Home trailers. There's no point in hiding it. Because at that point, it's not what the movie's about. If that is what the movie's about, and you don't reveal them till the end, then don't show it. But anyway, that leads us to today's question of the day. And the question of the day today is simply that. Will the first Avengers 4 trailer show us the resurrected characters? Let's just, for argument's sake, say they do come back in Act 1 and Act 2, okay? Will the first Avengers 4 trailer show us the resurrected characters being back? You guys, jump into the description of this video, and at the very bottom of the description is a link. Click on that link, pardon me, click on that link, and it'll take you to the survey, and you just click yes. Welcome back. They're going to show the resurrected characters, or no, they're going to try to keep the mystery, even though Spider-Man Far From Home trailers will already be out showing that Spider-Man's back, but whatever. Okay, so right now, over 300 of you have already answered, and overwhelmingly, you guys disagree with me. Overwhelmingly, you guys are saying, no, they're going to keep the mystery. Right now, 87.7% of you guys are saying that they will not show the resurrected characters in the Avengers 4 trailer. Only 12.3% of you are saying, yes, they will show the resurrected characters. So overwhelmingly, you guys are thinking they're not going to show the characters. So remember, guys, we're not going to go over the official results until tomorrow's John Campea show. You got plenty of time. Once again, go into the description of the video. At the very bottom of that description, you'll find the link to today's question of the day. Click on that. Let your voice be heard. Cast your vote, and we will go over the results tomorrow. Again, to me, it's all about when they bring the characters back. If they bring them back at the end of the movie, then you don't show anything. If they bring them back in Acts 1 or Acts 2, then that's not what the movie's about. You can show them. But what do you guys think? We're going to revisit this tomorrow. All right. That will do it for the emailed in questions of the day. For now, we're going to go over and take some live questions. And by the way, guys, I'm just going to let you know that today's live questions, all proceeds from today's live questions are going to be donated to the 1736 Family Crisis Center. You know, there are a lot of people who are at risk in our culture. Few people are as at risk as women and children escaping domestic abuse. One of the big services of the 1736 Family Crisis Center is that they have shelter and programs specifically for women and children escaping domestic abuse situations. And I'm really happy to say that today all the Super Chat proceeds are going to be donated to that. So thank you guys for your contributions. All right, let's get to it with the first. We only got like 20 minutes left, but let's get into it today. Vrinder Singh just sends in a Super Chat to be supportive. Thank you so much, Vrinder. Muse Tack Reviews writes, got to disagree on Chucky with you. The series has found a home with direct-to-DVD release and remains strong. Why do you think Universal is preparing its 8th film and TV show? Okay, so this comes on the heels of a topic yesterday. Somebody said they shouldn't be rebooting Chucky and Child's Play when it's still a strong franchise. And I basically, with numbers, showed it is not a strong franchise. It's not. The numbers prove it. Do you know that the last Chucky movie in theaters made less money at the box office than Joe Dirt? I'll just give you a second to let that sink in. The last Chucky movie made $20 million. Not domestic, not on its opening weekend. It made $20 million. Joe Dirt made 30. So, I mean, just let that percolate for a second. The Chucky Child's Play franchise is not in a position of strength right now. It's just not. The numbers prove it. But studios are always looking for recognizable IP and will always be willing to take a new risk on recognizable IP. That's why they took another risk on Power Rangers. Yeah, the last Power Rangers movie made like $8 million. But some time had passed and they thought, let's roll the dice again. And they rolled the dice again. Sometimes it'll work out, sometimes it won't. But studios will always look to recycle recognizable old IP. So that's why yesterday I said, yeah, I think it's a good idea for them to try relaunching it. I think it's a good idea to try. I don't know that it's going to work, but it's a good idea to try. Don't be mistaken, though, in thinking because they're trying, that means the franchise is super strong. If the franchise was strong, it would have been on the big screen by now. It's just simply not. You know, it got so bad that they made another movie that they intended to be on the big screen and nobody wanted to distribute it. So it went straight to home video. Fine. That's fine. That doesn't mean you can't take another shot at it later. So while I am all for them taking another shot at Chucky and Child's Play, because it is recognizable IP and there is potential there, let's not be fooled in thinking that it's coming at it from a position of strength, because the numbers just prove that it's not. It doesn't mean it can't be great, and it doesn't mean it can't be successful again. But as of right now, it is not a strong franchise. Far from it. Far from it. Ben Rayner writes, do you think Marvel was watching DC when they were hiding Superman from the Justice League advertising? And maybe Marvel won't make that same mistake? Oh, I think so. Look, I was screaming at the top of my lungs. Everybody knows Superman is coming back. You basically revealed it at the end of Batman vs. Superman with the close-up of his coffin and the dirt starting to shake and rise. You already told everybody. Everybody knows he's coming back. He's listed on IMDb. He's posted social media about him being on set and shooting, blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows Superman's coming back, and yet Warner Brothers refused to make Superman in their marketing and had the lowest opening weekend of all Marvel or of all DC films. That was the result. And they realized their mistake about 1 week before the movie opened. Or, it might have even been after the movie opened. And then they slammed Superman on everything. You have Superman in this movie, and you're not showing it. Well, we can't give away the surprise. There is no freaking surprise! Everybody knows he's coming back. Everybody knows. There's no surprise. Put him in. Understand marketing. You're trying to convince people to come out. You have the most beloved superhero of all time, Superman, Kal-El, last son of Krypton. Put him in your damn marketing. And it was one of the biggest gaffes, one of the biggest mistakes in recent years in film marketing. One of the absolute biggest mistakes. Do I think Kevin Feige and Marvel have been paying attention to that and seeing the mistakes they made? Oh, hell yes. Oh, hell yes. That's why, again, unless all the dead characters are resurrected at the very end of the film, in which case, no, you shouldn't show it. Then you shouldn't show it. But if you're showing them and revealing them in Acts 1 or Acts 2, anywhere in the first 70% of the movie, if you've got Spider-Man, again, one of the most beloved comic book characters on the big screen in history, you got Spider-Man in your movie, you damn well better put him in your marketing. You're going to market, come and see Spider-Man. You have Black Panther in the majority of your movie, he's so popular right now. Damn right, come see Black Panther on the big screen. You got to. Again, unless they're not revealed until the end of the film. Thus, you don't want to spoil the end of the film. But like Kal-El, Man of Steel, Superman, he came back in the second act of that movie. He was in a lot of that movie. There was no point in hiding. And yes, I do think, Ben, that Marvel is going to learn from that unbelievable mistake that Warner Brothers made. A mistake Warner Brothers will never make again. I don't think you'll ever see Warner Brothers make again. Illy Chen writes, do you think Thor's staying for Phase 4? I do. That's the billion-dollar question, man, that everybody's asking. You could make an argument after Avengers Infinity War. I mean, a lot of people came out of Avengers Infinity War going, now, Thor's now my favorite. Like, a lot of people went into Infinity War, Thor. But then coming out of Infinity War going, Thor's now my favorite. Because Thor was awesome in this movie. And again, when you listen to the Russo's commentary, you really realize this Thor, in Avengers Infinity War, is about Thanos and Thor. That's who it's about. The movie starts with the two of them. The movie ends with the two of them. And really then, the rest of the movie is following their individual paths. And what goes on from when they meet and separate from each other at the beginning, all the way across the narrative lines until the narrative brings them back together again at the end of the film. And look, the real answer is I don't know if they'll bring him back in Phase 4 or if they're going to move on to different things. But I'm starting to feel like it's looking like he's going to stick around. So for now, I'll say I agree with you that we are going to have Thor in Phase 4. I don't know that for certain, and I wouldn't say it's a sure thing, but I would lean towards your assessment of that as well. Adamus95 writes, my favorite cartoon has got to be the DuckTales theme. Puts a smile on my face. DuckTales, woo! Anyway, on my face every time I listen to it. What's your favorite cartoon theme? Oh, favorite cartoon theme. It was not my favorite cartoon. But Mask. Mask. To save the day. Mask. I mean, I love that. I loved it. I think I would turn on the show just to watch the opening theme and about 5 minutes later get a little bit bored of it and turn the channel. But that was big. I also love the original Transformers theme, but part of that might just be because I love the Transformers. Transformers, more than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. Anyway, so, I mean, that was great, but I don't know if I only think it's great because I love the cartoon so much, so I'm not really sure. But that Mask theme was really great. I loved that. MuseTac Reviews writes, check out the latest ones. High critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. The latest ones. I don't know what the latest ones is. Let me take a quick look here. The latest ones. What is that? It's a song. I don't see what it is. So I don't know what we're talking about, but I'll look into that later, MuseTac. Let's see. Julius Goodwin writes, if Venom flops, does that kill any prospect for the success of Sony's universe of Marvel characters? The official name of their movie universe. Sony's universe of Marvel characters. Whatever. Not necessarily. It's not good. It's not a good thing if it flops. But it depends on what we mean by flop. Flop, as in, it doesn't make a lot of money. Much like the Mile 22 thing. If they launch with Venom, and it doesn't make any money, but the audiences and critics liked it, you can move forward. Because now you've got, at least there's a foundation there you can build off of. The most important thing, normally I would say the most important thing is, does your movie make any money? But in the case of Sony and Venom and trying to launch this new universe, the most important thing is they start off with people getting on board. And even if nobody wants to give it a shot, but the people who do give it a shot like it, talk about it, and the critics enjoy it, then you've got a building stone there. Then you can build on something, and you can move forward. It's going to be more of a financial risk, but you can move forward because hopefully now you make the second film in this series, and everybody who saw the first time wants to come back, and they're encouraging other people to come back too. That's possible. Now, if Venom flops both financially and critically and with the audience, then I think they're done. And then I think Sony's going to take Spider-Man back. Because what I think is going to happen is if Venom flops, Sony's going to be like, okay, we can't make this happen without the Spider-Man character. So we need to end our deal with Marvel, and we need to bring Spider-Man back out of the MCU, back into Sony. That's how I think this is going to play out. If Venom is a success, and Sony goes, we don't need Spider-Man in our universe, so we're making money with Spider-Man being in the MCU, we're making money off that, and we're having success with our own stuff without Spider-Man. Win-win. That's the thing. A lot of people have been saying, and this has been completely backwards to me, a lot of people have been saying, let's boycott Venom to make sure Spider-Man stays in the MCU. And I'm like, what are you talking about? If Venom flops, that gives Sony every motivation to bring Spider-Man back because clearly they can't make it work without Spider-Man, and their films that have worked have had Spider-Man in them. They're going to bring him back. If Venom flops critically with the audience and financially, it drastically, in my opinion, it drastically increases the chances that Sony will take Spider-Man back. Because, well, this isn't working, so we got to go back to plan A and get Spider-Man back. If Venom works and Sony can go, we don't need Spider-Man. We don't need him. Our characters are working. Venom worked. The audience liked it. Made a little bit of money maybe. We can now expand on that and build on that. And we can keep Spider-Man, our Spider-Man character, we can keep him in the MCU and keep making money off those movies with him in the MCU and make money off these. Then Sony has every motivation to let Spider-Man stay over there. So that's why when I hear like people talking about, we gotta hope Venom fails, I'm like, what are you talking about? Think about it for a minute. Just think. Think logically for a second. You know, I just want to scream because I like Spider-Man in the MCU. I think the collaboration between Sony and Marvel with Spider-Man Homecoming was fantastic. I'm really looking forward to their next collaboration with Spider-Man Far From Home. I like seeing Spider-Man in Civil War. I like seeing Spider-Man in Avengers Infinity War. I think this has been a great deal for both Sony and Marvel. And I'd like to see him stay there. So, and I just like my movies to be good, no matter who makes them. So I want to see a good Venom movie. And if a good Venom movie and a successful Venom movie helps them launch a new comic book superhero universe and keep Spider-Man over in the MCU, win-win. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there. History Soup writes, rumors say Rian Johnson trilogy canceled. BS, absolute BS. They're still moving forward with it. I mean, just a few weeks ago, they were already talking about they're probably going to start shooting later this year. They're probably going to start shooting the new trilogy later this year. So yeah, ignore those rumors. I mean, look, anything can happen. Anything can happen, right? Anything can happen in the world. Something that's for sure can get canceled tomorrow. Absolutely could. But as of right now, it's still on. As of right now. But we'll see what happens. Romy J. Royster writes, how did Mile 22 make more money than Alpha? Terrible headache after watching it. Alpha, however, was a good movie, but the trailers ruined it. Well, you just kind of answered your own question, Romy, right? I mean, first of all, how did Mile 22 make more money? Well, let's see. Peter Berg directing, Mark Wahlberg starring in it. The last three films these guys did together were all amazing, from Lone Survivor, Deepwater Horizon, and Patriot Day. It's got big action, all that kind of stuff, recognizable stars. I don't see any realm of reality that Alpha would have made more money than Mile 22. There's absolutely no reason to ever even suspect for a second that Alpha would have made more money than Mile 22. I mean, Alpha may be a better movie, for sure. But there was absolutely no basis to have any assumption other than the fact that Mile 22, with all that other marketing stuff behind it and all those factors behind it, obviously that was going to make more money opening weekend, like for sure. So so you kind of answered your own question, my brother. All right, next. Ili Chen writes, name is pronounced Eli. Oh, Eli. Okay, great. Hope your mom is doing well. My mom is doing well, Eli, by the way, and thanks for correcting me on that. My mom is doing well. She's doing great. I'm looking forward to seeing her soon. She's, I'm sure, watching this show right now, and I'm sure she's glad you send out your well wishes. So thanks for that, Eli. I appreciate it, man. James Welsh writes, I know you think Netflix films suck. Oh, they do. But with the director of Hell or High Water, I'm optimistic about Outlaw King. Again, my only thing was if the movie was actually any good, it would be on the big screen. If the movie was actually any good, they would have put it where it actually makes money, which is on the big screen. That's where you actually make money. Again, there are exceptions. There have been a couple of Netflix original films that are definitely exceptions. Absolutely. But until I see it, I'm just going to refuse to get optimistic about it because I've been optimistic about a number of Netflix original movies that all end up disappointing me and being quite bad. And so look, when I watch this movie, and for those of you who don't know what he's talking about Outlaw King, which stars Chris Pine as Robert the Bruce, who was a side character in Braveheart. The trailer was pretty good. I didn't think it was great, but it's pretty good. And you got the director of Hell or High Water, when Hell or High Water is awesome. So it's got some things going for it. But again, I'm going to be pessimistic about it until I see it. And then once I see it, hopefully that changes everything. Ryan Irwin Dell writes, rewatch Return of the Jedi last night. Never been a huge fan of Star Wars, but the ending with the victory celebration song and everybody hugging always has me in tears. Oh, it was a great ending to the series. It was that whole, now, granted, I hate the fact that they changed the songs at the end of Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi is my all-time favorite Star Wars movie. And I've always hated the fact that they changed the songs at the end. Like, completely brutal. I hate that they changed the song at the end. From that great Ewok tribal song of celebration to that lousy elevator music pan flute song. Anyway, I've always hated that they changed. I hate a lot of things that they changed in the special editions. That's one of the worst. I mean, the worst is obviously Jedi Rocks. That's the worst. But yeah, I've always hated that thing. But yeah, man, I love that ending. It was a great ending to the series. Ben Hayusa writes, tell me something, my friend. You ever dance with the devil in the pale moon light? I always ask that of all my prey. I just like the sound of it. Such a great line from Jack. Such a great line from Jack. You know, it's been a lot of years since that Batman movie, but a lot of people forget just how good that Jack was. Just how good that Joker was, I should say, that Jack gave us. It was incredible. And that is like, that line alone so epitomized the mentality and the persona of that Joker. It's just great. I love that line. Shannon Gates C writes, one thing in number 9 you'd like to see. I don't know what we're talking about, Shannon. I apologize for that. And you're from Canada, so I really want to, but I don't know what we're talking about. Sorry about that, dude. ZCM Zombie Custom Maps writes, over under 30% that Vulture will be in Far From Home. I think the way over. I believe they've already confirmed Michael Keaton's going to be back in it. Now, whether or not he's going to be Vulture in the outfit, I don't know. But I mean, the character itself, yeah, I believe they've already confirmed he's going to be in it, haven't they? So I'm going to take the way over on 30%. Thomas Dixon writes, over under 40% that Cap or Iron Man die in Avengers 4. Ooh, that's a perfect line. 40% is a perfect line. You know what? At 40%, that Cap or Iron Man die, it's hard to take the under on that. It's hard to take under 40%. I'll take the over. Yeah. I'm going to take the over 40% chance that either Cap or Iron Man die in Avengers 4. It's just too low of a number for me to take the under. That's a perfect line, Thomas. That 40% line is the perfect line for that. But I will take the over. I'll take the over on that. Chef Cook writes, John, logic clearly dictates that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Great line, all-time great line. Star Trek movie, of course, when Spock and Shatner, of course, it's a repeated line in that point when Spock and Shatner are on the opposite sides of the glass, and he says, "Needs of many outweigh the needs of the few," and then Spock goes, "Or the one." Oh, beautiful line. Beautiful line. I love that line. ZCM Zombie Custom Maps writes, "Do you think the Lord of the Rings show will be a continuation after the Lord of the Rings movies, or each season will be spin-offs and based on other Tolkien books?" I don't think they're based on other Tolkien books. I believe, I could be wrong about this. I haven't been following it closely, but I believe that the show takes place between the events of the Hobbit films and the Lord of the Rings films. I believe that's when the show takes place, is in that time period between the events of The Hobbit and the events of Lord of the Rings. So I think they've already confirmed that. Again, I could be wrong about that. I haven't been following it closely, but I think that's what they've said. So I'm going to say it's going to be in there. Just a couple of minutes left here, guys. James Bonner writes, "Hey, John, didn't really have any specific questions today, but I know that the proceeds for the Super Chats are going to a worthy cause, so hats off to you, and I hope you have a great day." Thank you so much, James. I appreciate that. And yeah, like seriously, some of the most at-risk, I mean, there are many, many at-risk people in our society, but like women and children escaping domestic abuse situations and domestic violence situations, those are some pretty at-risk people. And anything that we as a film fan community can do to support them, like the 1736 Family Crisis Center, is awesome. And thank you for donating to that, James. I appreciate that. QMT54 writes, "What do you think about Field of Dreams?" Oh, I love Field of Dreams. Baseball. Even though I'm not a baseball fan, that's how good Field of Dreams is. I'm not a baseball fan. Like, I'll watch the World Series like anybody else, maybe even some of the playoffs. But other than that, I don't even consider baseball to be a sport. I consider it a game, but whatever. Everybody's going to yell at me for that. But I'm not even a baseball fan, and I love Field of Dreams. Anyway, let me keep going here. What do you think about Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner? Saw it last night for the 1,000th time, and the ending still gets me, especially after losing my father a few years ago. Loving your show and what you're doing today, from Quan. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Quan. It's a wonderful movie, and there's so many, like, it's a fantasy movie disguised in the shell of a Disney drama, right? In many ways, it's a fantasy film wrapped in a disguise of a shell of a Disney family drama. And just everything from the character development, the fantasy elements. I mean, that part when the players all come out. I mean, I remember the first time the first player comes out, I was like, woo! Like, I got kind of chills. Not creepy chills, just like, woo! I mean, the movie is just so great. And it gets to the heartstone about, even though I'm not a fan of baseball myself, there is no denying the cultural ties between, the classic Americana and what baseball is and what America is, right? And I've never seen a movie that better plays that out on an emotional level than Field of Dreams. And I just think the movie's fantastic. It's an all-time classic. I mean, even people who've never seen Field of Dreams, like people who've never seen Star Wars in life say, "I am your father." People know what that's Star Wars, right? People who've never seen Field of Dreams, "If you build it, they will come." Everybody knows where that's from. It's just a classic film, and I love it. I'm so glad you enjoy it, and I'm so glad you brought it up, Quan. I really appreciate that. All right, next up, Grandmaster writes, "Just hypothetically, if Bob Iger does something horrific and still wants to stay at his position, what are the steps to get rid of him anyway?" Yeah, so that's an interesting question, because Bob Iger, he is the high grand emperor of Disney. He is the CEO and the chairman of the board, and I believe maybe the largest shareholder as well. I mean, he trumps everything. He trumps everything and everybody at Disney. There is literally nobody Bob Iger answers to. I mean, really. It's just crazy the amount of power he has there. That being said, within every big organization, no matter how powerful, like for instance, a couple of years ago, the LA Clippers, the owner of the LA Clippers was caught saying some really bad stuff. I won't go into it all. But he's the owner, You can't fire the owner. Well, actually, yes, you can. Because within all these big businesses, there are clauses that can trigger emergency situations where you can oust even the person in the highest position of power. I am absolutely convinced that there is probably built within to the contracts and the bylaws of the corporation trigger events that could give the rest of the board of directors of Disney the power to oust Bob Iger and probably force him to sell his shares. But I would also imagine it would have to be something horrific. But yeah, absolutely 100%. There are things built into the contracts and built into the bylaws of the company that there are trigger events that can give the rest of the board of directors emergency powers to oust the chairman of the board, even if the chairman of the board is also one of the big owners of the company. So I'm sure that exists. It exists in almost every company of any modest size. So I'm sure it exists there as well. But Bob Iger's far too smart. He's never going to do anything like that. Calvin Bose writes, why is it Luke Skywalker is the only one in Star Wars who never heard of the Force? I don't think he's the only one. Like, remember, Luke is now of the generation. Luke was born when the Jedi were eradicated, right? He also lives on Tatooine, like this planet way off in the Outer Rim. He lives as a moisture farmer, so he lives pretty sheltered, and he lives with his aunt and uncle who have pretty much tried their whole lives to shield him from any knowledge of who he is, where he comes from, and what his parentage is. So the notion that he's never really heard of the Force is not a surprising one. What would be more surprising is if he had heard of it. Like, to me, that you'd have to explain that. Okay, kid who's going to be grown up completely sheltered on the farthest reaches of the galaxy, on a moisture farm, on a desert planet. How the hell did he ever hear about it? You know, and the Force users and Jedis have not been around for decades. So, yeah, to me, all those circumstances kind of add up to a pretty reasonable explanation about why he hasn't really heard of it at that point. TL Lucario just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, TL. Edgar Megana writes, going to college. Congrats, man. That's awesome. Last super chat for a bit. We'll still watch. Love the show. Thoughts on first Elm Street movie? Such a great premise and so unique. Oh, it was completely unique at the time. I mean, it completely got ran into the ground eventually, and unfortunately, a lot of people today, when they think about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, they only think about the parts of it that got ran into the ground, right? They only think about those parts, which is unfortunate because that first one's classic and great and did so many things that none of us, the whole concept of it was something none of us had ever really seen in a horror film before. And it was gruesome and bloody, and you had this great antagonist with Freddy who became an all-time classic. Now, when you think of the great horror film icons, Freddy is right up there at the top with names like it's Freddy and Jason. I mean, those are the two names that come in at the top. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was revolutionary. It really was. Tio Lucario writes, how's this for a mecha film? A mix of mechanical and nature life themed mecha film or story. Calling it Terra King. Sounds, honestly, I don't think that would work. I mean, I think that would work for a cool comic series. I don't know that there would be enough interest in an audience right now to be interested in stuff like that. It would be big amongst anime fans. So maybe something like that targeted at that audience. But as far as a big wide release film, I think that's a film that would struggle, even though it's a pretty damn cool idea. Twygriff writes, is there a deleted scene you wish was in the film? That's a very broad question. I honestly can't think of any. Off the top, I mean, look, I'm sure there is, but I mean, I can't pull one off the top of my head. I'd have to think about it. But I will say right now, I don't think I've ever had a thought where it's like, no, that scene had to stay in the movie. I really can't think of one off the top of my head. Maybe I would think differently if I had more time to think about it. Square Buzz HQ writes, think Tropic Thunder would be controversial if it were released for the first time today with Robert Downey Jr.'s role. Love the movie, but people are always ready to judge. No, I don't think so because, like, the whole point of that Robert Downey Jr. character was the absurdity of the Robert Downey Jr. It's not like they try to pass it off as, hey, a white actor doing blackface and being in a movie is perfectly normal and acceptable. That was never the point of Tropic Thunder. Had it been the point of Tropic Thunder, everybody would have rejected the film for obvious reasons. But it was the fact that it was the ridiculousness and the audaciousness and the absurdity in today's time and culture that an actor would do that made it work. And that's why it worked so much. It was the whole playing on the absurdity of it all. And for that reason, that's why it worked at the time. That's why it worked for me. That's why it worked for you. And that's why I think even today it would work today, because of the nature of the character and how they handled it and what the point of the character was. That's what made it work. That's what made it funny. And I do. I still think that would have worked today. I really do. Square Buzz HQ follows up with, based on the trailer, I might add. Ooh, see, that's a different dimension. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen the trailer. Like, I don't know. I mean, if you put in the part in the trailer, where Robert Downey Jr., you people, and where Robert Downey Jr. goes, what do you mean, you people? And then the actual black character goes, what do you mean, you people? It just killed me. Just the absurdity of the scenario and that these characters found themselves in. But again, I'd have to watch a trailer again. But that's a good little caveat there. It's like based on the trailer. I don't know. I'd have to watch the trailer again to know for sure. It's a good question. Let's see. Ryan Trabuco writes, hey, John, first super chat. Thanks so much for sending it in, Ryan. Longtime viewer, watching since AMC days. Agree with you on Sorry to Bother You. Love BlakKklansmen. Highly recommended. Yeah, and again, look. And let me say this. If you have not seen Sorry to Bother You and you're interested in it, ignore what I'm saying. Because the fact of the matter is the majority of people who've seen it seem to like it. I don't get it. I don't understand why anybody likes it. But that is just my opinion. There are a lot of people out there who do like it. So if you've been thinking about checking it out, ignore what I'm saying and check it out and judge for yourself. For sure. But yeah, I loved BlakKklansmen, man. Way more. And I'm not even a big Spike Lee fan. But I thought he just did a great job with this film. I just ate it up. I loved it. I thought it was terrific. One of my favorite films of the year. I don't think it replaces A Quiet Place for me, but it's definitely one of my favorite films of the year so far. Let's see. Gabe Schembarger writes, watched Reign Over Me yesterday. So heartbreaking. Great. My favorite all-time Adam Sandler movie. If you want to know how good of an actor, of a dramatic actor Adam Sandler can be, forget this comedy stuff that he's sucking at these days. Watch Reign Over Me. I still argue to this day he should have been nominated for an Academy. Maybe not one, but he should have been nominated for an Academy Award for that film. He was so good. And you're right, it's heartbreaking and powerful and emotional, and Adam Sandler sells it. He's great in it. So good. Such a good movie. I'm glad you checked it out, Gabe. Nathan Oswald. I lost Nathan here. There's Nathan. Hey guys, I'm going to have to ask you to cut off, and please don't send in any more questions. I'm going to just really race through these last few here because we've gone way over time and I've got things I'm supposed to be preparing for. So I'm just going to rush through these things here. Please don't send any more questions, and here we go. Nathan also writes, if Ma could just slice things in half by only lifting a finger, then why didn't he do that to the Avengers? I don't think he can just slice people in half. I think he's telekinetic. I think he can throw things at people. I don't know that he has the ability to just grab somebody and rip them in half. I don't know that, but he was clearly doing some pretty heavy-duty things to kill people, and it wasn't quite working out. But hey, I don't know the exact parameters of Ma's powers in the film, so it's hard to say. The Call of Duty God writes, love the show, John. Thank you so much, and thank you for recommending Mission Impossible Fallout. Saw it last weekend and enjoyed it very much. What's your thoughts on Body of Lies? Oh, is that the Russell Crowe one? Hold on a second. Let me just double check. Because I think this is the Russell Crowe one we're talking about, but I'm not really sure. It's the one he does with Leonardo DiCaprio, I think. And yes, there it is. And Mark Strong and all that kind of stuff. And Oscar Isaac was in that. Completely forgot about that. I like Body of Lies. I didn't think it was great. But, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. You got two of the best actors in the business, Leonardo DiCaprio and Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe wasn't in it as much as I would have liked to have seen him in it. But overall, I thought it was a good movie. Not as good as the potential it had, because it was directed by Ridley Scott, right? And so, I mean, the potential was through the roof. It's a movie that didn't live up to its potential, but I liked it good enough. But maybe that's just because I like Russell Crowe so much. James Argenta writes, will Marvel wait to show Captain Marvel in the Avengers 4 trailer until after her movie, unlike what Marvel did with Black Panther in Avengers 3? I don't see why they would. It worked perfectly good for them with Avengers, right? Like, they were showing Black Panther in Avengers trailers before Black Panther came out. And it worked great, right? It worked amazing. Black Panther became, I believe, the highest grossing domestic superhero movie of all time. It joined the $1 billion club worldwide. I mean, it was just incredibly successful. So I don't know why they would take that approach. I mean, why not do it again? It worked last time. Why not do it again? Let's see. Westman Arts writes, the first Blade Runner was a flop. Now it's a classic. Blade Runner 2049 was a flop, but will it be regarded as a classic eventually? I don't know. I mean, I thought it was a good movie. Look, personally, I enjoyed Blade Runner 2049 more than the original, personally. But even then, I didn't think it was a great movie. I thought it was a good movie that did some great things. I mean, visually, from a cinematography and from a visual point of view, that movie is just awe-inspiring. But I had some problems with the narrative. There are some things they did that were way too much of a stretch and didn't make sense. And some things that I thought were just kind of gratuitous, to be honest with you, from a narrative point of view. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say within the first 2 or 3 years that a film comes out if it will be regarded as a classic 10, 20 years from now. It's hard to say. My guess right now would be no, but who knows? Brian Clark writes, hey, John, just wanted to support the Crisis Center. Thank you so much, man. So I don't really have a question. So can you please just say the name Michael Rooker for me? Because I get a kick out of it how you pronounce it. Do it for the ladies. I'm never really sure. I believe it's Michael Rooker. I've heard people say Michael Roker. I've heard people say Michael Ricker, whatever. I've always said it Michael Rooker. So I could be wrong in my pronunciation of it, but hey, there you go. I probably do that for a lot of names, to be honest. There's probably a lot of names I mispronounce. But hey, that's me. Thanks a lot for supporting the charity, Brian. I appreciate that. Toonie2 writes, do you think we will see Alden Ehrenreich again in big movies, or is there no chance after the Solo failure? Oh, no, we'll definitely see him again. He's a good actor. Look, he was destined to be a big actor after his appearance in Hail Caesar. He was in a movie with a bunch of Hollywood A-listers, and he was the best, other than Ralph Fiennes. Ralph Fiennes was the best performance in Hail Caesar. But other than that, Alden Ehrenreich was the best guy in that movie. He's got charm, he's got charisma, he did a good job in Solo. Solo was a good movie. But it's a movie that nobody asked for. Nobody wanted a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford. So there you go. But, they made a good movie. And he did well in it. So yeah, I believe we're going to see him around. We will see him around. Darren Chase writes, does Sony own the rights to Spider-Man in video games? I thought that Marvel owns merchandising, yet Spider-Man PS4 is exclusive to Sony PlayStation. Well, honestly, I don't know. I don't have my finger on the pulse of the video game world, but I will say this. Lots of video game makers will make their games exclusively for Sony. That doesn't mean Sony owns them, right? So Marvel could have, I'm just saying this from a position of, I don't know. So I'm just speculating here. But there's no reason why Marvel couldn't have the rights to the video game, and they choose to make their game an exclusive for PS4, much like many other companies do. A lot of companies make games for exclusive for PS4 release. So I don't think that one necessarily negates the possibility of the other. But the bottom line is I just don't really know. Samir Tesfall just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Samir. Mustach Review writes, I mean the latest Chucky movies. Sorry, Mustach, I can't remember what you wrote earlier. Sorry about that. Guys, if you're going to write in something, you got to give me context because I may not remember what we talked about 20 minutes ago. Sorry about that, man. Brian Clark writes, oh, we all know that the heroes are coming back. But you know who doesn't? Kids. My kids were inconsolable at the end of Infinity War, and no rationalization or reassurance would dry their tears at losing Groot for the second time, no less. Oh, and that's fine. That's fine for your experience watching Avengers Infinity War. That's fine. That's fine that you had that experience in the theater watching the movie when it was in theaters. That's great. But that doesn't have any bearing on what's going forward, though, right? Because I'm telling you right now, a Spider-Man Far From Home trailer is going to be in theaters before Avengers 4 hits theaters. So there you go. There is going to be, because Spider-Man Far From Home comes out just 2 months after Avengers 4 comes out. So that means probably a good 3 months before Avengers 4 hits theaters, there's going to be Spider-Man Far From Home trailers out there. A full 3 months, minimum, before Avengers 4 ever hits theaters. So again, that doesn't have anything to do with the experience that you had or your kids had in theater watching the movie. You had that in theater experience. Great, but that doesn't really mean anything for what they're doing moving forward, right? So they're two separate situations. But you saying that reminds me, when the second time I saw Avengers Infinity War, I was with my brother-in-law, Ray. Me and Ray went over to the AMC Burbank 16, and we sat beside this dude and his little son. And it was awesome. And the little son was like, Ray was turned to him, who's your favorite? And the little kid's like, I like Thanos. And like me and Ray, who had already seen the movie, were like, you're not going to like Thanos for long, kid. Anyway, so we didn't say that to him. But, this kid was like into it. But oh my God, when that movie was over, the kid was crying and hiding under his dad's jacket. It's like it had that real big emotional impact on him. But again, that was then. That was in the theaters. That was while Avengers Infinity War was in theaters. That was the in-theater experience. That doesn't dictate at all how they're going to market what comes a year later. You already had the in-theater experience. Now it's something else. And like I said, that Spider-Man trailer showing a very alive Spider-Man is going to be out minimum 3 months before Avengers 4 ever enters the theaters. So it is what it is. Let's see. Lucas James Westman writes, thoughts on 2001 Space Odyssey? Amazing. And like, honestly, it's never been one of my big go-to movies. It's one of those films that I really like and I completely appreciate as one of the all-time classics. Yet is not in my personal top 10 or top 20 favorite movies of all time. But, I mean, there is no dispute. But I kind of feel the same way about Blade Runner, except I like 2001 much better than I like the original Blade Runner. I don't like the original Blade Runner, but I acknowledge it as one of the all-time classic and its importance in the pantheon of sci-fi filmmaking of all time. Same thing with Space Odyssey 2001, but the difference is I actually like 2001 A Space Odyssey. Caleb Bradford writes, they are releasing Outlaw King on some theaters so it can get Oscar recognition. Yeah, I mean, anybody can do that. I mean, I can book a theater, in one theater in New York, one theater in LA, put it on a big screen, and I become eligible for Oscars. That's what Netflix has done with a lot of their films. It's no real big deal to do it. Doesn't really cost any money to do it. And it's a simple thing just to make sure you are at least eligible. Shannon Gate C writes, episode 9. What are we talking about? Episode 9. Sorry, Shannon, I can't remember where I remember you said something about 9 earlier, but I can't remember what it was. Guys, if you're writing in things at different points in the show, please put in the context so I don't have to sit here and think about what did we talk about 20 minutes ago when I've already talked about 18 other topics. So sorry about that, Shannon. I apologize, man. David Leon writes, I rewatched WALL-E last night. I thought it was a great movie that has themes still relevant today, but I didn't care much about the humans. Yeah, I don't think anybody cared much about WALL-E is great. WALL-E is great. I remember my friend Rebecca Winter Keegan. She was writing, I believe, at the time she was writing for Time Magazine. She's now at the LA Times, I believe. But anyway, I remember, great lady, great entertainment reporter, amazing. But I remember she wrote this article about WALL-E. It wasn't a review, it was an article about WALL-E, where she really made a case that it is one of the great sci-fi movies. Forget animated movies. When you really break it down and look at the individual components of WALL-E, it is one of the all-time great sci-fi movies. And it kind of makes you revisit our understanding of sci-fi. And then I looked at the movie and I'm like, oh my God, it really is. WALL-E is brilliant on so many levels, but I completely, I'm in complete agreement with you, David, that my least favorite part of it, the most uninteresting part of it, was the actual humans themselves. Everything else was awesome. The humans themselves were whatever, so I completely agree with you. And then Samir Tesfal puts in a couple more super chats just to support the charity today. So that will do it for today, guys. Guys, seriously, thank to all of you who sent in super chats today. First of all, thank you always for all of you who send in super chats because it supports the channel. So thank you for that. But today, especially because you're supporting a cause that's much, much better, much more important than me or this channel, and that is helping families at risk. So thank you for that, guys. I deeply appreciate it. Guys, don't forget, a little bit later this afternoon, Open Mic is here at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And don't forget, if you want to come back and rewatch this video is going to be up all day long. That'll do it for me for today, guys. My name's John Campea. Thanks for being here, and until next time, bye-bye.